Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to get started in just a minute, but first let's hear from our sponsors, starting with Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast, and I encourage you to go to their website at www.violetdefense.com. That's violetdefense.com. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. We actually have a Sideline Interactive board in our school, and it is great. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo to see their tables and boards in action and also see what these fantastic products can do for you. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. You won't be disappointed. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs, and they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen options and an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, visit www.vitalsignswalloffame.com, or to learn more and get started on your own digital Wall of Fame tribute, call them at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack as our named sponsor for the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives the 95% of the players and the parents who really love your program a voice and helps demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your program from good to great. We also want to thank our good friends at Varsity Brands, along with Hometown Ticketing, for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. We've got a really cool guest today. We're going to visit with Julie Kelly. Julie's the office manager for athletics at the Fayetteville School District in Arkansas. And anyone who has been around athletics, I know our ADs listening right now, you know the value of a good administrative assistant, whether it's in your office or in the district office. So I'm excited to hear what Julie has to share with us. Julie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jake. I'm excited to be here today.
Okay. And I guess we need to, I don't want to, but we need to give a shout out to our good friend, Doug Kilgore, for making the connection and getting you on. Thank you, Mr. Bowtie, for doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug.
All right, let's go and get started. Julie, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up, and maybe a little bit on your path that's led you to Fayetteville.
Okay. Well, I was born into a low-income Native American family. I grew up in Lexington, Oklahoma, central Oklahoma. After high school, I did college for about a year. It was kind of a struggle because growing up in a low-income family, I had to work full-time while trying to go to college. So after a year of trying to do that on my own, I wasn't successful in being able to do both. So I dropped out for a while and met my husband. We got married. He is, for 20 plus years, he was a full-time vocational student pastor. So I did ministry with him. He has since moved on and he works in the regular workforce now. But so I got a great job in Dallas working in communications and working for a great corporation. I did that for a few years until we started to have a family. And so I stayed home for a while. And then by that time we had moved to Arkansas. And when my children started school, I thought it was about time to go back into the workforce. And so there was a great job that popped up in the Siloam Springs School District as an administrative assistant. They later termed that athletic assistant. So I took that job and I stayed in that job for 11 years. And so just recently, about 3 months ago, I took a job here at Fayetteville School District as the administrative office manager of athletics. And that's where I am today. I have been married to my husband, Jason, for 27 years. We have 3 children. Jackson's 25, Jed is 18, and Jensen, my daughter, is 17. So
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I always love to hear those stories. Julie, you and I talked a little bit before we came on, and that, your path is, let's say a different path than many ADs follow. They go to college, they become teachers, coaches, and then they move into athletic administration. Obviously, yours is a little bit different. When you first took, and for our listeners, Julie's career goal is to become a full-time athletic director. So I think she's really, she's doing a great job of getting that on-site experience. But when you first started out as an administrative assistant back in Siloam Springs, what surprised you about the job? What was interesting about it? What maybe started to light those first embers of desire to be involved in athletic administration?
yeah, well, when I was in junior high, I did play some sports. When I got into high school, it began to be a little bit more difficult just because my family was low income and we lived way out in the country. So trying to get to practices in high school, like after school, I couldn't stay after school. I had to ride a bus. And then in the summers, my family couldn't get me. So I didn't get to have the opportunity in athletics like I really wanted. So when I had the opportunity to be in athletics in Siloam Springs, I was really drawn to the kids who struggled the same way that I did. I was really blessed to be in an office that I was really active in the day-to-day athletic events with the coaches, with my athletic directors. And so the thing that really has drawn me into athletics is the part that getting to help kids. And so I've been very integral as far as working with our coaches. I know usually who's on which rosters. My athletic directors have let me watch practices and participate in some games and things like that. So watching the whole side of things from the coaching side, from the athletic director side, is really what has drawn me in. I don't know if there's anything that really has surprised me. I think I was surprised that when I started the job, how much I ended up loving sports itself and loving everything that goes into that, the game day management side of it, the facilities, helping the coaches with their coaching credentials, all those kind of things. I think it surprised me that although that was not, I took the job because it was good timing for my family. I didn't know that I was going to love it and love the kids and the coaches so as much as I did.
Very, very keen observations. And I can tell you, I've just recently retired after 41 years as a teacher, a coach, and then 26 as an AD. But was talking with another athletic director, and that, as a coach, you're working directly with that group of kids. If it's 13 kids on a basketball team or 60 kids on a football team, it doesn't matter. You're working directly with kids. And when you make that jump to becoming an AD, you're still impacting the kids, but in a different way. You're working through those coaches, as you mentioned, the game day experience and all the things that go into game day that kids and parents and student fans don't understand. So
Right.
great observation. And again, you're right there on the front lines as that administrative leader there at your school district. For our listeners, we are visiting with Julie Kelly. She's the athletic office manager at the Fayetteville School District in Arkansas. We're going to be back in a minute, but let's take a break and hear from one of our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD podcast. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Go to their website at violetdefense.com for more information. You won't be disappointed. Welcome back, everyone, to our conversation with Julie Kelly from the Fayetteville School District. Julie, we always like to ask our guests about the people that have had an impact in their life. Leadership and mentorship is just so important. So who are some of the voices that you still hear in your head that have helped get you where you are today?
Oh my goodness, it's a long list. I have been so blessed to work with some really great administrators over the years. I think I mentioned to you that I worked in the Siloam Springs School District for 11 years. One of the first principals that I worked with was a man named Charlie Abernathy, and his love for kids just like flowed out onto everyone. And he used to always use that Maya Angelou quote that said, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And I kind of took that from him. And so he showed me how to show value and appreciate the people that you work with. My first athletic director was Kerwin Dees. He was actually the person who, I was the first athletic assistant that they hired in the Siloam Springs School District. So he hired me, and I learned so much from him about compassion, support for coaches. After him, I worked for a man named Kevin Snavely, who taught me so much about details of budgets and policies, personnel issues, how to document things. After him, I had a man that I worked with the longest, and his name was Kevin Downing. He coached in some college and then before he came to high school. And I hear him a lot in the things that I do. He had just talked about how we do things for kids, how to make things equitable in sports. He taught me a lot about how we follow AAA rules, Arkansas Activities Association, best way to do things with sponsorships, things like that. And then after him, the most influential person in my life has been a man called Ken Harriman, and he was my athletic director for a couple of years. He was so good at relationships, and he just taught me how to be intentional with kids, how relationships revolve around everything that we do. He was such a wonderful man who was not prideful at all. He was quick to admit when he was wrong. He gave me a lot of leadership responsibility. The last year that we worked together, he had gotten cancer, and so he was out a lot, and he trusted me a lot to do some things. And so, and then after Coach Harriman, I worked with a man named Jeff Williams, who was a really great award-winning coach in the state of Arkansas, and he came to be our athletic director. And just the humility, the love, the care for kids that he modeled for me has been amazing. And then I have a couple others.
Absolutely,
Ann Martfeld, who was a principal that I worked with, was such an incredible team builder and visionary. She taught me how to find ways to say yes to things, even if people have told us before this is the only way we do things. She taught me how to question, why we do what we do. Is it the best practice? And then at that time, we also had a vice principal named Ross White, who was so influential in my life in teaching me about the academic side of things. He taught me about master schedules and why state laws are why we do what we do. And he was such a good team leader. And we talked all the time about how important it is to surround yourself with great people. So just having him, meeting Doug. I had another lady in my life named Jerry Price, who was an assistant principal, who taught me the value of treating kids like adults. And my own kids benefited me from watching her. Kids are kids and they're ornery and they can be a little tooch sometime. And so watching her be respectful and treating kids in a way that made them feel like they were heard taught me a lot. So I have this long list of people. I was talking to Dr. Dustin Smith, who I think you've had on your show before the other day, and just telling him about how blessed I am to have all these people in my life. And he said, Julie, it's kind of like having a big pot of stew. By itself, everything is not good, but all those people who have put things in your life over these last 11, 12 years have made something really, really great. And so I agree with him. I've been so blessed to have such great mentors in my life over the past few years.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I just love to hear ADs relate the people that have impacted their life. Very cool stuff. Julie, you and I were talking a little bit. We get a lot of younger athletic directors that listen to the podcast, along with old guys like me. But I think it's important to talk about how they first got involved with their state and our national organizations. And you're not even an AD yet, even though you've got a lot of athletic experience, sure, but you're already getting involved. So tell our listeners, how you got involved with these organizations that we talked about.
Okay. Well, a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to complete my undergrad. So I went back to school online while working and completed my undergrad in communications. And then this summer, I started working on my master's in sports administration, and I will finish next summer. But one of my athletic directors was going to be being celebrated as being the athletic director of the year for Arkansas Activities Association. And so I was going to go to that award ceremony, and my other AD said, hey, Julie, they're going to be doing some cool LTI trainings. One was on gender, and then there was some legal things. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And he goes, you should come with us and go to the trainings. And so I did do that training this summer, and that's where I met Doug. And it was incredible getting some connections. I know lots of athletic directors across the state just for being in the job for so long, but to actually get to be there with them and do some training was super encouraging to me. From there, once I met Doug and we started connecting, he connected me with Amanda Snyder, who is an assistant AD in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. He helped me get connected with the global community of women in high school sports. I did sign up to join the NIAAA, and I've begun working on my RAA. I'm trying to do that in the middle of working on my master's classes, so we're getting there. But I also joined the National Organization of Minority Athletic Directors. So I've gotten involved in those kind of organizations because I know I'm working towards, well, I have been an admin assistant for the last, 11 years. My path does look a little bit differently. I've kind of got the experience behind me. I'm looking for the future now, trying to get my education. So those things have been really, really helpful to me. I've actually signed up to attend the NIAAA conference this December in Denver. So I'm looking forward to doing that for the first time and just making more connections there.
You are already off to such a great start, and definitely we'll look forward to connecting with you in Denver. We use the expression for first-time attendees. It's like trying to drink water from the fire hydrant, but you're going to have a great time. Okay. Once again, for a list. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just said I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, you're going to have a great time. For our listeners, we are visiting with Julie Kelly. She's the athletic office manager for the Fayetteville School District in Arkansas. We're going to visit with her some more, but first, let's take one more break and hear from our podcast sponsors. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo to see their tables and boards in action and see what these fantastic products can do for you. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Check it out. We're back with Julie Kelly from Fayetteville School District, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Julie, one of the things we try to do at the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. And you've certainly been around athletic departments in your role. So what are some things that you've seen at your schools or maybe even at other schools that you can look at and say, boy, those are really good ideas, or even things at your school that you say, boy, we do this better than anybody. Can you share some best practices?
Sure. You know, I think one of the best things that I've got to be a part of is that the previous school district that I was in was really, really great at creating memorable experiences for kids. Not just athletes, but band, our student section, even our little future Panthers, our little guys that we did. We really looked at things because, you know, in athletics, sometimes you are really, really successful in some sports. And then there are some years in some sports that you're not very successful at. So when looking at that, it was like, okay, when our kids walk away from this, what do we want them to look back at? So as far as creating, you know, a lot of athletic directors do not like homecoming. We worked really, really hard at homecoming and senior nights and community events because we wanted our experience for all of our students to be the very best thing. One of my athletic directors, Ken Harriman, one of the things that he used to always say was he would visit with a senior at the end of their season, like a kid that maybe had gone 7 through 12 through our program and who was a little bit mature. So after they were at the end and they'd already graduated, or not graduated, but been done with their season, he would visit with them and say, tell us some things that we did right. Tell us some things that we could have done better. And so, because it was important to him and to our department for us to figure out from a kid's perspective, what did you like about being here? What could we do better for other students? And one of the things that we loved hearing was anytime a kid got done with their season, if they could walk away and say, if I could just play one more game, regardless of it was a state championship game or regardless of it was a terrible season, if they loved being on that team so much that they walked away and said, man, that was great. I wish I could play one more game. So I think that was one thing we were really good at. We have been really, really great at social media and branding our school district. You know, we used that to our benefit during COVID. When COVID happened, sports stopped. And so there was nothing to post. We didn't have upcoming games. We didn't have scores to post or anything like that. So we took that time. There was a lot of negative going on in the world with social justice issues and people were a little bit discouraged. So we took that time to really focus on our social media. We created a hashtag called Panther Family. I appreciate my athletic director for letting me kind of take that and run with that to focus on some positive things during that time. And so we printed out some shirts that everything that we did that year was called Panther Family. We gave them to all of our gate workers. We gave them to our volunteer workers. Anyone who did anything of service in our athletic department, we did that. And during COVID and our social media and our branding, When there wasn't sports to focus on, we took the opportunity to highlight each one of our coaches every single day. So we would post a picture of them and their family, and tell a little bit about their background, and just to help our parents and our students to realize, one, our coaches are real people. They don't live at the school. They have feelings too, so when people are yelling at them and things like that. So we just wanted them to feel like, you're a part of the Panther family. So here's how we're going to help you get to know our coaches a little better. So that was kind of our focus, of making them more feel of community and positive. And when there weren't sports to focus on, we focused on those who were helping make our sports such a great place of where we were. And in that same aspect, I feel like one of our best practices is the focus on community relations. When dealing with booster clubs, our sponsors, having great relationships with media, we recognize that it's not just our parents and our student athletes that make up such a great athletic department. It's all those in the community and everyone who invests. Academics are important, and people appreciate academics, but people come out for sports. They feel like there's unity and a togetherness. And so we recognize that. And I feel like we do that well. We bring people in to help make them feel a part of our athletic department.
Really, really great stuff. I love the t-shirts. It's amazing how much, loyalty and buy-in you can get with just a t-shirt, the Panther family. And your part about, the kids, and that was word for word what I would tell, particularly my middle school coaches. I said, you could go 10-0 and I fire you at the end of the season, but you lose every game and your roster comes back and says, boy, we had a great time. I wish we had 2 or 3 more games. Those are the things that we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. We're going to take another break, but we're not done. More with Julie Kelly from the Fayetteville School District. We also want to thank Wall of Fame for their support of the Educational AD podcast. Wall of Fame by Vital Signs is on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen options, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, visit vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more and get started with your own digital Wall of Fame tribute, call them at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We're back with Julie Kelly, the athletic office manager for the Fayetteville School District. Julie, we've been asking this question of our guests kind of since the Olympics. I was talking with a sports psychologist, and at the time this summer, Simone Biles had just been so very candid about some of the social, emotional challenges that she experienced at an elite level, and that all student athletes are experiencing. So my question is this: how can an athletic director or a head coach find a healthy balance between, let's say an old school, come on, you got to be tough, you got to suck it up approach, while being aware of and sensitive to the very real challenges that a Generation Z student athlete experiences? Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Watching kids and coaches through COVID was really, really tough. Here in Arkansas, if you had any kind of fever, allergy, anything, you couldn't come to school. So there was this weird balance of your kids could just basically show up whenever. And you had to let them be okay, because if they said they were sick, you didn't want them coming in case they had COVID. But then at the same hand, it was hard to practice because you're not able to offer the same kind of accountability. Because like you said, the old school, when I was in school, is like, we do hard things. We suck it up, we go. I don't feel good. Well, I don't feel good when I want to go to work sometimes, but we get up and we do those things. So that was a hard balance. The other hard thing is kids spent so much time at home, whether they got quarantined, whether their schools weren't opened yet. I feel like my own children are really well-adjusted kids whose parents love them. We take care of them. But even watching my own children, who were a junior and a senior at the time, withdraw a little bit by being at home and not having their normal, consistent routines, not having sports, not having their friends. And then when they did get to go, they were experiencing loss as kids were being pulled out of classrooms and being sent home and being quarantined. And then watching kids play on the court or on the field of just like, oh, I don't know if this is going to end, or I'm struggling because I haven't had the connection that I needed to. It is a really tough balance. I feel like we've got to work really, really hard. Athletic directors helping their coaches recognize what mental health issues look like, what depression and anxiety looks like. I saw lots of kids last year who are great, amazing kids like my own, who come from well-adjusted families who struggled with anxiety and depression. The thing is, we jumped into that so quickly that we didn't really have time to offer professional development to coaches that said, this is how you recognize it. This is how you deal with it. So a lot of coaches were having to deal with it at the drop of the hat. So I think it's important that coaches look for opportunities to do any kind of professional development, and even on their own, going on websites and finding out, what does anxiety and depression look like? How can I help a kid? And then there's got to be some sensitivity and some grace with kids. The pandemic has been hard. We've all gone through some weird things. We've lost people in our life. Athletics has looked different. Just the whole change when kids every year have done the same thing. I go to school and we do this. It all changed. And so trying to learn how to handle all that has been very difficult. So I think it's just the intentionality of athletic directors helping their coaches, and even coaches seeking out, okay, I need to pay extra attention to my kids. I need to look at what's going on in their home life. And maybe when a kid drops the ball or they're not playing their defense like they should, or maybe recognizing that it's not that they're just having a bad day, there might actually be something else going on more in their life. And so we know athletics is not all there is. Like, we get the opportunity to pour into kids every day. And this gives us a great opportunity to look at these kids. And as athletic directors, it gives us great opportunity to coach our coaches and mentor them and say, let me show you what I would do if I were in your position. And I think one of the things for athletic directors too is recognizing sometimes it's really easy to focus on all of our high school sports because those are the ones that the competition really counts and there's a lot of pressure there. But I think it's important as athletic directors to even show our junior high coaches your sports matter, what you do at this level, especially those little 7th and 8th, 9th graders. Emotionally, hormones are already crazy, you know what I'm saying? So when you have hormones and then you have a pandemic and all these changes, it's so important to be aware of what's going on in our kids' life and to be intentional about making sure that we're trained to handle those situations that come up.
Very, very good stuff. I love the focus on being intentional. It's out there. And so, okay, how do we, just like with any coaching challenge, how do we do a better job? Great stuff. We're going to be back in just a minute and find out what Julie Kelly is going to put in her toolbox. And we want to give a shout out to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of our podcast. Stay with us, and we're going to find out, like I said, what's in Julie Kelly's toolbox. Be right back. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also allows you to give the 95% of the players and the parents who really love your program a voice, and helps demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then call them at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. All right, it's that time. Julie, we want to know from your position as an athletic office manager and athletic administrative assistant, what do you think needs to go into a new or an old athletic director's toolbox? What 3 tools are going to go in Julie Kelly's toolbox?
Well, I think especially for young ADs, the first thing that I would say is to always look at, I don't think any of us have ever arrived. We always should be a lifelong learner. And I have tried to be really intentional in the things that I'm doing, like I mentioned to you about joining associations and things like that. But one thing that I did in my previous job was that I joined the classified PPC committee. And I ended up being the president of that. And one of the benefits for me was I had great conversations with my superintendent, assistant superintendent, CFO. I learned about meeting the school board and dealing with them, changes in policies, funding, new hires, things like that. That involvement in my school district helped me to be aware of what was going on, things that I could learn. And so I think that's really the first tool. Even I've kind of had a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion as I'd like to move in going forward. So anything that you can do to help grow that certain area as an athletic director, like look for opportunities for that. I think the second thing to put in a toolbox would be to have empathy and to listen. As an athletic director, sometimes we assume what people are thinking or what their intentions are. I always choose to assume that people have the best intentions before assuming that they have the worst. And then because I've been a parent in sports, I try to empathize and I try to listen and see things from the lens of the person speaking, whether it be the student, the parent, the official, whatever. I think that is so important, is to try to listen more than you talk, and then empathize with those that you come in contact with. And then the last tool I think and this may seem something simple, but I think it's probably the strongest thing, is to show value to others. So it doesn't matter. And because I've been an administrative assistant for my career, I have seen the value of when we recognize our coaches. On National Coaches Day, we would take them a Sonic drink and some candy and say, we love you guys. I know you work hard. I know you come in late and you leave early. We see what you're doing and we appreciate you. Or even like we talked about the t-shirts earlier, if we give out t-shirts to people who work our game events, we look for the national days of recognition to recognize like our SROs, or we might go to our cafeteria workers on like cafeteria day or maintenance day and say, you guys do a great job of taking care of our facilities. Those relationships of people just want to know that what they do is important. Nobody gets into this business because of the money. And so we all start out doing it for kids, but sometimes the policies and the rules and all of those things make it heavy. But when you remind people that what they do is important and you show value to them and you thank them, I think that is the most important thing that you can do, because we all want to come to work for something worthwhile, and showing people that what they do every day is worthwhile, whether it's the custodian who cleans our gym. And I've noticed that people who feel valued will always go way beyond what's expected of them. So I think that definitely, that should have been probably my number one, but yeah.
No, they're all in there in your toolbox. Some great wisdom. Julie, this has been really cool getting to know you and sharing some time with you. But if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, what's the
Sure.
best way that they can get in touch with you?
Okay, it's Julie, Julie .Kelly, Kelly at G as in Google, FAYAR.net.
Okay. Again, this is Julie Kelly, the athletic office manager at the Fayetteville School District in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Julie, thanks so much for being on the podcast. And like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to connecting with you in Denver this year.
All right, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you bet. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.